Thank you for waking up with us on what has become a somber Tuesday morning. Alex Giles here on WBTV News Now. Following the big story from the past 24 hours, wanted to hop on to talk about what happened yesterday in East Charlotte. What started out as breaking news that we carried live for several hours on WBTV. Wanted to recap some of what we learned last night and overnight about that ambush shootout that happened in an East Charlotte neighborhood. First things first, this happened late last night, and I wanted to pull this up for you here. There's a procession for the CMPD officer who died after being shot in that standoff situation on Galway Drive in East Charlotte. You see there all the CMPD cruisers. This was at Atrium, Maine, and you see all the CMPD officers, some of the workers from the hospital who were out there as that procession was there. They carried the body of Joshua Iyer, the officer who was killed. They carried his body from the hospital to the medical examiner's office in Charlotte. You see all the folks out there paying tribute. A very, very somber scene there. This happened late last night. We know CMPD actually put this video out on social media, so credit to them for releasing this. But let's talk about what happened yesterday afternoon in East Charlotte. We know a task force made up of several different law enforcement agencies was trying to serve a warrant on Galway Drive in East Charlotte, and it's just a residential neighborhood. But we now know a man who police have identified as Terry Hughes is the person officers were trying to serve a warrant for, and he opened fire, according to police, when some of those officers from the task force approached the home that they thought he was in. We know he shot at those officers, and in total, 8 different law enforcement officers were hit. 4 officers were killed and 4 were hurt. Now, the folks who died include a CMPD officer who we just mentioned, Joshua Iyer. He was a 6-year veteran of the department. We also know that 2 officers from the Department of Adult Corrections, William Elliott and Samuel Peloche, were also hit and killed. And a 4th officer who has not yet been identified was also killed in that shootout. And again, another 4 officers are recovering this morning. We know 3 of them are with the CMPD, and another person who was injured is a member of that special U.S. Marshals task force that was out there on the scene trying to serve a warrant. So I want to get back to some of that video of what transpired yesterday. We know that in addition to this gentleman, the suspect who was in the home, there were also 2 young women, a 17-year-old and then another woman who hasn't yet been identified yet, and we do not know the relationship between those 2 women and the suspect who was in that home at the time, who police say was engaged in that shootout. I'm just restarting some of the video for you there to re-rack and show you exactly what this looked like, but just a chaotic scene in that neighborhood off Galway Drive in East Charlotte. You see a number of CMPD officers and other first responders, some of that tactical gear trying to surround that property as this was all happening. Just a chaotic sight for people who live in this community. As you see in that shot, just a residential neighborhood. Take a listen to what some folks said about what they witnessed.
It's a lot of emotions going on. You know, you could tell a lot of people scared.
Next thing you know, I'm hearing pop, 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 pop.
Tyler, get in here! Get in the bathroom, Tyler!
Hundreds, at least 100 shots. It's like you see in a movie, but real life.
We heard, like he said, like more than 100 gunshots, like boom, 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 boom. Being honest with you, never happened this before in this area. Never expected to see so many police officers wounded, so many cars. Never, never.
Just a chaotic scene, and wanted to bring in our own Jason Puckett. Jason was up early with us on WBTV this morning today, and you were out in the neighborhood reporting live. Jason, what was it like out there this morning?
It was honestly a bit surreal. I mean, you drive out there in those East Charlotte neighborhoods, and it's pretty quiet, nothing really going on, and this was sort of tucked back in there.
Sure.
Frankly, it felt like you were just driving through a normal neighborhood until suddenly you stumble upon a very active police investigation.
Wow.
And, you know, a lot of these types of things, the next morning you come back and they've cleared out to some degree.
Nobody's there, yeah.
Exactly. You're doing a shot and saying this is where this happened, but not only were they still actively investigating, they had it shut down for quite some area around. So, you know, we couldn't get super close on any of the sides.
Right.
And you look up there and you see CMPD officers out there kind of still walking the scene back and forth. They had a lot of different trucks from different agencies out there. So clearly with the number of rounds that were fired and all that went down, they've got to be out there retracing every single step.
Right.
And definitely, you know, if you're in the neighborhoods out there, you're still kind of living parts of this right now because they're having to go through police barricades to get in and out of their houses.
Exactly.
And just having, you know, constant media coverage. I was out there with probably dozens of other stations and national media out there. So
wow.
You got to feel for the folks who not only experienced it, some of them sent in these videos we actually saw, you know, literally having officers in their backyard, and now they're still out there, you know, in the front yard. But you know, the folks, we did have a chance to talk with a couple neighbors out there, didn't want to go on camera, but they all kind of were thinking of the police officers more than anything, you know, hoping that the ones who are still injured are going to get better, and really mourning those that were lost. And you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, thought that they did a good job of what needed to be done yesterday.
Gotcha. Obviously, this looks like a chaotic scene, what unfolded yesterday afternoon. I imagine that even though there was still a presence, it probably wasn't as much hustle and bustle as yesterday, correct?
That's right. I think a much calmer pace this morning. You know, I think they are trying to keep in mind that there's a neighborhood there and there's people there living there.
Sure.
So mainly the hustle and bustle was moving the media around this morning.
Right.
You know, we would get pushed a little too close and a little further away. But as we were leaving, as the sun was coming up, we saw some more cruisers going in.
Right.
So we have a press conference coming up a little bit later. I'm sure we'll hear more about what they're still actively looking into out there this morning, and you know, what the folks in that neighborhood can expect.
Just curious, I know this was in a neighborhood. Any main roads over there blocked off as they were trying to work, or was it pretty much just like the neighborhood streets near Galway?
From our experience this morning, it was just the neighborhood streets.
Okay, good.
Again, till you got within that neighborhood, you couldn't even tell something had gone on in that area. It was that was what was kind of surreal about it. So nothing major, no other real traffic issues at the moment out there.
Jason, we appreciate you hopping on and obviously getting up early with us today as well.
Glad to be here.
Wanted to pull this up for folks as well. Take a look here. Overnight, we recorded some video from the Charlotte skyline. You can see all the blue in the skyline. That obviously on purpose. They wanted to pay tribute to those fallen officers, the 4 officers who were killed in our city yesterday. So obviously always nice to see a tribute like that from the folks who work with the city and our partners with some of those corporate entities in uptown Charlotte. Also wanted to show you this. We had flags at half staff. This was outside of the courthouse overnight. You can see American flag, North Carolina state flag already lowered to half staff, again in honor of the officers who lost their lives yesterday in that terrible, terrible situation. Seen a ton of reaction from different elected leaders and people across the country, really. Wanted to pull this up. Tweet from Governor Roy Cooper. This is on X. He said, "Our hearts are with the families and co-workers of officers in today's brutal attack, including 2 State Department of Adult Correction officers working with the U.S. Marshals Task Force who were shot and killed." Again, that from North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper. And we should mention the governor expected to be in Charlotte again. He was here last night. We know he's going to be here today. And I believe he's going to be at the press conference you heard Jason just mention a moment ago. That press conference is going to be held at 11 a.m. We know CMPD expected to provide some more information about the investigation that is now underway. Wanted to do this one more time and obviously honor the men who lost their lives in this terrible situation. So let's see if I can pull up the image we had of those officers who lost their lives yesterday for you here. You see Joshua Iyer, Officer William Elliott, U.S. Marshals Task Force, Officer Samuel Peloche, U.S. Marshals Task Force, and then we know a 4th law enforcement officer was also killed yesterday in the terrible ambush shooting in East Charlotte. That person has not been identified just yet. Of course, as soon as we get more information about that officer, we will bring that to you as well. But we know Iyer, Elliott, and Peloche were all husbands and fathers, so just a terrible, terrible loss of life. And we are keeping them in our thoughts and prayers and thinking of their families and the law enforcement community as a whole. We appreciate what they do every day, and we know that when you get up in the morning and you head out to patrol the streets or serve warrants or keep our community safe in some way or another, you don't always know what you're going to encounter. And these men ended up making the ultimate sacrifice. We're forever grateful to them, and we are definitely thinking of their families in this very, very difficult time. We appreciate you hopping on and getting some of the recapped information of what we've learned about what transpired yesterday and overnight today. And obviously we know the developments will only continue from here. So we appreciate you sticking with WBTV. Stay tuned for more information throughout the day.